Welcome to the podcast Cultural Codes, where I'm unraveling the hidden patterns, habits, and stories that shape the way people live around the globe. Today, we are exploring the way how taking part in international projects influence the way we understand other cultures. After participating in international youth exchanges and Erasmus Plus programs, I realized that these experiences have actually had a drastic impact not only on my soft skills and ability to sustain myself, but also on the way I see people from other countries. It made me curious if it's a universal experience, so I asked people with similar backgrounds if international projects change something in them, and if so, what these changes are. One of the first people I spoke to was Olga, a philology student who has participated in multiple Erasmus programs and intercultural academic initiatives across Europe.
My name is Olga and I'm currently pursuing a bachelor's degree at Odessa National Mechnikov University. Over the past few years, I have had the opportunity to become deeply involved in international academic and intercultural environments. I participated in 2 long-term Erasmus exchange programs in Poland and Germany, as well as a short-term Erasmus mobility program in Turkey. In addition, I took part in the Baltic University Program Student Conference in Poznan and attended a summer political school in Gdańsk in Poland. Before gaining international experience, I think my understanding of culture was relatively superficial, like it often is for many people. I mostly associated culture with visible elements such as national traditions, foods, clothing, celebrations, or language. However, through communicating with people from different cultural backgrounds, especially during international programs and exchanges, I gradually realized that culture operates on a much deeper and often invisible level. The unspoken social codes that people rarely notice within their own societies. For instance, attitudes towards punctuality, privacy, hierarchy, emotional openness, or personal boundaries can differ significantly across cultures.
I think what Olga says here is very important because many of us initially understand culture only through visible things like food, music, architecture. But once you actually experience living among people from different countries, you notice that culture is also hidden in everyday habits. Actually, in anthropology, there is a concept of high and low context cultures introduced by Edward Hall. He argued that communication is never only about words, and in some cultures, which he called high context cultures, much of the meaning is indirect and dependent on shared social understanding. While in low context cultures, communication tends to be more open and direct. He also talked about the comprehension of time in different countries. For example, some cultures can have very strict rules about punctuality, and some cultures can be more easygoing about being on time. So when you're living in an intercultural environment, it is very important to remember these differences. For example, if your Italian friend is late for the meeting, you don't have to be angry, but be aware of the way the time is approached in Italian culture. On the other hand, you also have to be mindful of how your habits might be understood differently by foreigners. Basically, the key point here is to be more empathetic and understanding. Another recurring idea in almost every conversation was the fact that intercultural learning often happens through informal education. People often share that the most thought-provoking and life-changing moments happen in an informal setting. Conversations in shared kitchens, debates in dormitories, or discussions that emerge spontaneously late at night. Ivana, a student of international law from Ukraine, describes her experience during a year-long Erasmus exchange in the Czech Republic.
Hi, my name is Ivana and I'm from Ukraine. I'm currently finishing my bachelor's degree in international law, and last year I took part in an international project for the first time. It was a long-term Erasmus mobility from my home university, and I spent a full year in the Czech Republic. I was studying at a foreign university, and also I was living in a multicultural dormitory. And honestly, that space, more than any classroom, it became a kind of living laboratory of cultures. For example, you'd walk into the laundry room and hear like 3 languages at once, or you end up in a late night conversation with somebody about politics, traditions, or completely random things, and you somehow learn more than from any lecture. Later, I also had an opportunity to participate in a short-term program in Denmark on European security. Before the experiences, it's easy to say that you're open-minded, but you don't fully realize how much your perception is built on assumptions. And living abroad changed that for me. I think that everyday conversations turned out to be the most valuable part of the experience. For example, they helped me realize how much context, upbringing, and media shape people's views. I also noticed that I stopped relying on cultural stereotypes and I started noticing individuality first. What surprised me the most was not how different we were, but actually how much we had in common. Whether it was someone from Lebanon, Georgia, Palestine, Argentina, Azerbaijan, or for example Germany, beneath all of the cultural layers there were shared emotions, similar ambitions, and common experiences.
I feel like people who are about to have an international experience expect difference to dominate interaction. However, deep and meaningful communication provokes the opposite. Stereotypes weaken, while recognition of a shared human experience becomes stronger. Giovanni from Italy is also sharing this similar experience.
Hi everyone, my name is Giovanni and I've been in Groningen, Netherlands as a part of my Erasmus. I would like to start saying that it was of course a special occasion. For me in particular it was like a dream to do an Erasmus. Having the opportunity to do that give you a lot in terms to learning about yourself, about the others, to grow, to be more mature. Had the opportunity to share the kitchen with all of the continent existing, with Ukrainian people, India, Taiwan, Germany, Austria, Spain. Most of my friends were French, so I didn't stay a lot with people who were from my same country, so that's amazing, because most of the insight I've been learning from this experience come also from my autonomy, because I had to do everything by myself, and it was my first time ever. In addition, I would love to connect to the second question by talking about all the people who shared the kitchen with me from Ukraine, Germany, Austria, Spain, Taiwan, India, and this gave you the opportunity to connect with a human being which didn't grow up following your same example or experience of life. Because when I was child, I maybe watched that cartoon, I used to do that things that were common for an Italian. So when you talk with someone that is from your country, you have some common point in between. But this is not the same when you have to talk with someone who's not from your country. Trying to find some common point in between.
I feel like trying to find a common point in between is the best approach we can take while interacting with people from different backgrounds. However, sometimes the experience can be not so pleasant, especially when you face a significant difference in the perception of life. Emilia from Ukraine shares in what way she dealt with those situations.
My name is Emilia and I participated in many Erasmus projects already. It was around 8, I think, at the moment. And that includes youth exchanges and training courses, and it was in many countries. So it was Poland, Romania, Norway, Italy, Denmark, and others. I think one of the biggest insights that I received on one of the programs was that common sense isn't that common after all, and definitely depending on the culture it changes. So sometimes it was, especially in the beginning, I think it was a little bit difficult to accommodate to different cultures and different temperaments and different views of people, but it really got way easier, and it is really interesting, I can say. And I really like it now to meet someone from some other country and to really indulge into their perception of the world and how they see it and communicate and find some common things, find something different, learn something from each other. You know, it's really also nice to see all of these experiences that, yeah, we do have different cultures and many other things, but after all, we're still all connected.
I think Emilia's phrase, common sense isn't so common after all, captures one of the most important aspects of intercultural communication, because very often what we call normal, logical, or obvious is not universal, but simply a reflection of the environment we grew up in, and international projects show this very quickly. Anna, another participant from Ukraine, currently studying in Germany through Erasmus Plus program, also reflected on how interaction with people from other countries changed her perception of stereotypes and assumptions.
My name is Anna, I'm 19 and I'm a student of international law. I have taken part in an Erasmus Plus project in Turkey and in Ukrainian-Polish youth exchange in Poland. Apart from that, these days I take part in an academic mobility in Germany. So I really want to say that once I started to connect with people from other cultures and countries, it really gave a great boost to my open-mindedness and self-awareness, while my entire personality and knowledge were truly taken to the whole new level. So it would be reasonable to mention that I used to travel even before I started to go on international projects. But still, when I started to get acquainted with people from Turkey, Spain, Poland, for example, I really understood that before that, my head had been full of biases, stereotypes, and prejudice. And when you start to connect with real people, when they start to tell you about their cultures, their traditions, their routine and just ordinary way of life, you can understand the reality. You can get rid of all of the biases, of all of the stereotypes that filled up your head before. And suddenly it feels like the world is so much bigger. It's so much more pleasant. Right now that I'm in Germany, I'm able to connect with even more people from different backgrounds. Now I'm more concentrated on finding out the peculiarities of this or that culture, finding out more about the traditions. If you're a young person who wants to start going on international projects, I would really recommend you to do that. Apply for as many international projects as you can, because once you start, you will never want to stop it. And once you start connecting with these people, once you start to understand how good of an experience it is, you'll really never want to stop. So I would truly recommend you to do that.
Today we found out what a life-changing experience a participation in an international project can be. It expands your horizon, makes you more empathetic, and also teaches you a lot about yourself and other cultures. Thank you for listening. Share this episode with someone who might find it interesting, and subscribe for more. You listen to Cultural Codes. Until the next time, stay curious.